I'm the only ESPN employee moderating a Pavements panel. Thank you. It's a lot of football notes here. Okay. Yeah, first of all, it's an awesome movie.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed watching it. I'm gonna start with you. I feel like the thing you have to start with is the format, which is obviously very inventive and crazy, and it's 4 movies in one. And I wanted to start by asking you how you arrived at the 3 non-traditional documentary formats. So, the exhibit, musical, the biopic. Did you come up with it all at once, or was it over the course of time? How did it unfold?
It was immediate, and it's sort of like a bullet point of why it all emerged. Immediately, one thing I'm told about the movie that these guys might want is they want their involvement to be limited. They don't want to be doing interview on camera number 6 with you. Or number 1. They don't want that. So immediately I'm thinking, how do you make a mirror? How do you smash the mirror? What do you do that says this is the Pavement story that I don't need? Say like, hey, I'm sorry, we need one more interview with you. We're missing some information. So then it started being, let's do representations of the band. Let's do fictionalized. Let's do this. And that just all came from my genuine love of things like archival museums. The David Bowie exhibit that toured the world like 10 years ago was really exciting for me. And I love stuff like that. And the sort of like, let's do this, let's do that. That came very quickly, right away. So early that my interviews with everybody, which were in 2020, like 5 years ago this summer and fall, I was saying, especially to Scott, who kept all the archive, if your story could be told through objects, what objects are those? Do you have them? Do you have a picture of them? So it was all there initially, but then like the broader reasoning is regular filmmaking is boring. There's no point in doing it. And it's just not if you can help it.
Okay.
And I could help it on this because we could just write. We could charter the unknown road by making something in a format that to me I've never seen before. There's 2 reasons for that. One is that to me the plurality of Pavements, the title, into the band as a subject, needs to be represented and representative of the contradictions of the band, the diversity of their sound, CD by CD, especially these concerts I would learn 2 years after I did these interviews. And I wanted the movie to reflect, for me, a fan and the author of the film, the feeling of listening to Wowie's Out, where it's every song's a different kind of song. Every scene should be a different kind of scene. You can see a Pavement now, there's a perfect 3.5-minute pop song, a bratty 90-second punk song, and a 6.5-minute jam in a row. Any other band, that would be a very strange thing. For Pavement, that's exactly what we want out of the CD, it's what we want out of the show, and it's what I wanted out of the movie. And that just was there, and I was like, that's how it has to be.
Did you ever consider a 5th format? Or
yeah, there was other stuff that didn't make it. The one that this becomes a Harness Your Hopes answer was, the thing that just didn't happen was an archival conspiracy, to use archival video to make it seem as though the band had subliminally planted messages between 89 and 99. Where you have diehard fans. It would be like the documentary Room 237, where you would just hear people like yourself, journalists, theorizing about like, well, if you look here, you see the shirt he's wearing, he's saying like 2021 will be back. And I wanted to do that. And then by the time we were making the movie, that had happened so literally that it wasn't even worth attempting a version of crafting a narrative, a false narrative out of archival, and the best use of archival became, it's just, there was just no point in doing it. Like, the joke would have been exhausting because it would have been pointing at something that most people watching the finished film 2, 3, 4 years later would be like, this is a fake thing of a real thing, instead of everything that's a fake thing of a fake thing.
Jason and Tim, you're in
That's a great line. Thanks.
the biopic part of it, and Tim, you're also in the as a talking head, separately / super fan. But I want to ask you what you thought of the genre. Because I think watching this film, you get a pretty good sense of what Alex thinks of that genre. We can start, Jason, and so what do you think of the genre generally, and why did you feel assume you do, that's sending it up that made sense for this band?
Biopic, like a music documentary biopic type?
Yes.
Yeah. And when you say the genre, do you mean the genre of a movie?
I mean, like Bohemian Rhapsody,
Okay, got
the Dylan
Got
one.
We don't have differing opinions on the Dylan movie.
Well-
we won't relitigate last night's.
No, we had a big argument, we missed a good one last night.
Did you like it?
I loved it, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, most, a
Oh,
lot
wow.
of people did.
I didn't.
Well, a lot of people did.
See?
I won't watch
Nothing
I
happened.
love Bob, like he's my guy. And I wanted to hate it so badly. I really did, trust me.
Yeah, me too.
But I
felt
cried.
great when that happened.
I cried.
It is tough, like, you know, but just to be, just generally speaking.
I'm not sure you're right.
I don't think so. Is it? Hello? It's not
You're
working.
good.
You know, sorry, but the, yeah, like it's always, sometimes it can sum things up a little quickly. But, you know, for instance, like Ray Manzarek coming up with the intro to Light My Fire in the Doors movie was really fast. And you hear me but I understand, you know, it's a movie, you know, you're trying to do, you know, so they can be good. I like typically, but I'm a fan of really anything about music. Except for the Bob Dylan movie, which I haven't seen. I have not seen.
Have you seen the Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yes, I'm
It's
happy.
tough.
Well, I think Walk Hard kind of dropped the A-bomb on the whole thing, right? Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox
Yes,
story.
that is.
That's kind of dropped the A-bomb on the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anything in the wake of that movie is hard to
Yeah,
do it without thinking about that movie.
yeah.
And that was on my mind, and what I find fascinating, and what these guys are really helpful for in the crafting of this
This
is
is
like
exactly what I was about to say.
that movie is inimitable, and I loved it as soon as I saw it. But what I'm fascinated in 15 or maybe even close to 20 years after that film at this point is the spectacle of that movie is a spoof, and I love spoofs. They hit the beats in a comedic way. But what I'm more interested in than the spoof is the pomp and circumstance and the machinery that surrounds this sort of storytelling now.
Mhm.
Inherently, I don't have a problem with the medium.
Right.
Some movies I like, some I hate. It just depends on if the movie shows me something on the script that I'm intrigued by. And if it's scene after scene of everything predictable, that's fine. I can still watch those movies. And sometimes they're like a 6 out of 10. And that's fine. But then the media nowadays is like, you won't believe how long he learned to play this instrument. And I'm like, is this more interesting than the movie? Or like, you gotta see the lengths they went to make the wig. And I'm like, sure, like, put it in, if it's that interesting, put it in the movie. Like, you're watching these scenes in these movies and you're like, I would rather just cut to the actor working on this scene, because this scene has nothing in it for me. I'd like to see Mark Eibel just come into the set, say, you guys look like a band, but you don't look like Pavement. Because that's what we're all thinking when we watch these things. You're all like,
Yeah.
what is that? And then to me, like the machinery, so putting these guys in there, not just in the movie, but you're doing your own EPK in the movie. The way that Wowie Zowie was an album with its own B-sides on it.
It was also a very clever way of telling some of the story beats of the biography, ironic, fun. You know all these documentaries that do like that cheap animation now? Like, this is like, well, we don't have any footage of this, so we're gonna have some kind of like flash animation, but when that happened is like a flashback. It sort of feels like it's a more inventive way of getting through some of those stories.
And it had to be, because this was the best part of the story. Not like the best part of your lives, but like the juiciest. If you're making the bad movie, when these guys tell you your research stories about spring, summer 95, you're like, this is great for my script of a terrible biopic. The problem is, if you're making a 3-act movie, this juicy part that you want to sort of be the nadir happens directly in the middle of this decade.
Yeah.
So it's kind of structurally clumsy, which I just ignored when we ultimately finished the movie.
How did you guys go? I mean, because you're playing like label guys, obviously different from the real life people who you've met in the process. But then, with this like twist on it, how did you approach that?
I worked with my acting coach for a few months.
Yeah.
Who lives in Sweden. We went over Very, very little. They said he wears a Mets hat. That was about it. No, I mean, well, I guess it's like reverse engineering because everyone said that this Gerard Cosley seems like. Well, what do you say what happened? So
Yeah, I had gotten to know Gerard the least. I talked to Chris Lombardi the most, and at some point I said, I'm struggling on Gerard casting. Jason was the first person I called after I was even vaguely approached to do this, because we had talked for years about how compelling we find Malcolm as an interview subject and a personality. And I was like, whatever, so Jason should be Chris, because historically these are the kinds of roles that people of Jason's stature end up like finally getting an award for, where it's like, why did he do, like, what's Tom Hanks doing in this movie? Like, but then I was like, I don't know really Gerard's vibe, and someone at Matador was like, Gerard would be like Tim Heidecker. And I'm like, well, yeah. And then I ran into him, like, ran into Tim like a month later at the Fonda show, right up the road here about 3 years ago. But yeah, I was very clear. I was like, I don't care about like the reality. Like, don't ask me questions about his character. Don't ask me like, just show up and like we're just fucking around. Let's just do. Don't do voices. Don't study anything. Just, you're doing the work by showing up.
The musical piece was kind of the most fascinating to me. As you talk about the movie, it's a band that has a complicated relationship with the idea of sincerity. And you chose this medium where you turn the sincerity dial up to an uncomfortable level for people who like the band. In the context of this movie, it makes perfect sense, and it's so interesting to see the music decontextualized and all that. But I was wondering what it was like in real time when you put that on for Pavement fans to see.
Yeah, I'll answer. I feel bad. I mean, Scott's just sitting here. Guys,
No, it's fine. I love it. It's great because, you know, I learn way more about my band and myself than what you've done, so it's awesome.
Well, let me use her question because you guys have always been, I'm still fascinated. Sincerity, irony, like for you, what do those words mean when you think about playing these songs? Like, do you reject both of these? Are you like, oh, we hate that?
No, I mean, both of those things were always at play, and, you know, for me, it was, you know, Pavement was always a very honest and sincere kind of band, and sure, there was irony and stuff, but that was just part of it all, and I think people just kind of took it to another level, and I mean, maybe it wasn't, you know, maybe not a lot of bands were doing that at the time, and so we were more popular because of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like last week at Film Forum, Mark was like, slackers. Like, we're never slackers. We hate that term, and I'm like, okay. Some of these unread emails that I've sent over the years beg to differ. But like, to answer your question, like the musical was I mean, again, I'm in the movie saying this, so it's not like I'm saying new information, but like, it was the grand experiment of, can I clash these things together? Is this oil and vinegar, or is this, as I say in the movie, chocolate and peanut butter? Or oil and water, I guess. Oil and vinegar salad dressing. Oil and water is the other thing. And I was like, can this work? And not because I genuinely need to know, because I was certain that it would at least be compelling and entertaining. It's, again, my form of scrutinizing the industry of recontextualization of things we love. And back to back, 4 years ago, I watched the HBO documentary on Tina Turner and Alanis Morissette, two different artists from different generations, and they both ended at a Broadway jukebox musical opening. And Green Day, one of my favorite bands growing up, I never saw the play American Idiot, although it's my biggest inspiration for what we did, because I'm just fascinated by, like, it's not good or bad, I don't know, I wouldn't say that. It takes so much work to make something like that. Good or bad is not for me to say. Michael Esper's in the show, and I've watched everything on YouTube about it. But I think we can say, is it good or bad that this is a thing we're just going to keep doing? Planting a CD in the dirt in 1998, and then by 2025 plucking it out and saying, let's put it on Broadway. That the work we can't criticize because it takes hundreds of people years of their lives. We can have our own opinions on it, and I can certainly point out that while we were making this movie, there was a Sufjan Stevens musical that, as far as I can tell, I didn't see it, was indistinguishable from what we did in 8 weeks as a joke. It was lauded beyond comprehension, and I watched all the clips online, and I just didn't make it. And people from our play went and saw it, and they were like, it's not exactly what we did. And all these reviews are like, it's just unbelievable the way you just hear this music and there's no talking. Just let the music do the talking. I'm like, yeah, that's fucking obvious. That's exactly what I did. Anyone would do that. You want dialogue in between your favorite songs. So like, the question for me with the biopic is the same question of like, forget about the qualitative content of the material. Let's just talk about the qualitative content of the culture. Demanding these things and rewarding them with money and accolades. And like, that's the conversation I'm having through this movie. And to me, from day one, good or bad, complex, indifferent, ironic, sincere, Pavement to me, I was like, through this vessel, through these 5 CDs, these 5, now 6 members, we can address this entire cultural conversation because the band is so complex. They represent so much complexity. They are an art project. They're also a rock band. And that's not true of many other things.
Can I ask you guys what it was like for you as fans and actual creators of music to watch it in that format? Because again, like, he's talking about the idea of it and what it means, but just watching it, what was that like for you guys?
I'm a huge fan. I grew up a huge fan. Very, truly, I said this to you last night, just a life-changing group for me. I was stuck in a classic rock mindset in high school, and Crooked Rain was the record that like broke me out of that and said, oh, there's music that my generation is making that I actually like and feels relevant to me.
But drumsticks.
Yeah, the drumsticks, yeah.
You all know the drumsticks.
Yeah, it's a line I sang, but it's a line from one of your songs. I was so relieved that it was great, that the movie was great. You know, you do things and you be a part of things and you care about things and you just hope that it's in good hands and you hope that it turns out all right. This could have been a fucking mess, right?
Very easily.
I'm sure there are earlier cuts where it is, but it was, I just was delighted and thought I'll say masterpiece of documentary. It was just like so fun and inventive and so in such a brilliant way and relieved.
I mean, I thought it was great all around, but the musical thing really hit home for me because of just the lyrics and everything of the songs. In that context, you know, when you're in the band and you're playing these shows and you hear the lyrics, but they're just back in your head, and they just became way more important all these years later in this context, and I don't know. I mean, for you all, you know, in the records and stuff, it's like, you know, that's probably what hit you first, and for us, you know, it wasn't a big thing, and so it's a cool thing to what you did, Alex.
Yeah, it was joyful making the music. I mean, I wish you know, people want to see it, and like the representation of the edit of the musical in the film has very little to do with the way it was presented. There was a very clear story told through borrowed lyrics and told through choreography, which matters in the movie, and that's clear from the characters. But that's not, you know, we knew that would never be something we could fit into 2 hours because the show was 70-ish minutes.
Scott, to go back to sort of the sincerity, satire, tension that kind of runs throughout this, the exhibit to me was really watching you guys experience that, because it's, on one hand, it's, you know, you're having fun with the idea of legacy and there's made up elements, but on the other hand, you're seeing this very real experience of like people really coming out, young people, younger bands honoring them. And I was wondering what that was like for you to be there, knowing that this is a real thing, but it's kind of not real. It's like 20% not real. So, you know, how that affected your experience of it.
I think I just all the real stuff that I contributed to was just sitting in a box in a garage for so many years that actually seeing it in just seeing it out and along the fake stuff was funny, but the real stuff kind of just made me really it hit kind of hard, you know, and but yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. We did a lot of stuff. There's a lot of cool artifacts that we collected, and
Whatever happened to all the fake stuff?
We've got it. It's all in the matter.
Oh, it is?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
You know, 2/3 of the stuff is yours, and some of it came from the Matador basement, and that stuff just got,
Okay.
we just printed that all. It's not like it was invaluable, but we can.
What do you mean?
Um,
Toenail. Harry's toenail, man.
Yeah.
Where's Pavement in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Just conversation.
Oh, I don't know. Somebody was talking about it the other day, and
People keep asking me this too.
It never occurred to me until just now that it's not, you never hear it mixed in there. That's pretty cool.
I then stumped this person who was a music journalist by saying, like, name an independent band in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm not saying there isn't one, I'm just saying I don't know, I don't follow those things. Name one that has no major label support at any point in their career. And if there is, I mean, I'm sure there's some, but I just don't know what they are. And, the museum was like conceptual, again, like, because to me and Robert Greene, the film's editor and co-producer, Robert especially says Pavement are conceptual. Malcolm has in one of his notebooks says, I'm not conceptual, which means they're conceptual. And it's a band of ideas, and it's the idea of being in a band. It's the idea of playing music. It's self-reflective songs. It's songs parodying exactly where they're at in their career. It's this bizarre, vast project. So the movie had to be conceptual. And to me, as a former narrative filmmaker, the museum was like 10 months of work. Like, we were talking about stuff, and he was giving me lists of what was in his garage. Easily February of a year where we put this up October 1st. And the whole conceit was like, can I make a movie in public where we spend months building a film set with production designers, and we light it with camera people, and we just open it to the public and film around the clock for 4 days. And then on one day, the band comes, we have tribute acts, and we're filming 20 minutes of our movie in 4 hours. And as a challenge to myself, I thought this was fascinating. But Jason, like, this is the kind of thing we love, because Jason, nobody loves music documentaries or music ephemera more than him. And like, just like, you would always be like, look at this book, or like, look at this like thing I found. It's like these pictures of somebody's like old. I have like this whole book of everyone's backstage lanyards, and you gotta just look at these things, like the design. And it's like, this kind of stuff is just fascinating to us and people like us. And I was like, I just want to live in that, because the other version of a movie like this gets Scott's archive, puts it against a black piece of felt, and just films it in like a little panning shot and something corny. That version of the movie takes these young female musicians who worship Pavement and interviews them about their contributions. It takes the band and interviews them.
Yeah.
This version puts those objects in the movie, but in an incredibly complicated way. It asks these younger artists, don't just tell me about I remember someone put the CD in my hand, just pick your 3 favorite songs and play them for us.
Yeah.
They told me first, we don't want to do interviews for the movie. So then 3 years later, or 2 years later, I have an actress, Kristen Slazeman, playing a reporter, putting a microphone in their face and saying, so tell me about this. And I get exactly what I wanted. I get the exact thing I was told we're not going to do. But I get it in this public-facing way. And it's like, I get 10 minutes with each one. That's all we need. We need like 3 or 4 great quotes. Mark, I could just spend all day looking right here. Great, we're done. West, oh yeah, like I could duck and we missed the mud. Great, we got it.
Was Dave Grohl not available to explain about the cultural impact of Pavement?
He was entirely available. And Thurston available, cut out of the movie. Thurston on the Blu-ray.
You had a couple of those moments in the, like, you do,
Yeah, I was sitting there getting fitted, and they asked me some questions. I didn't
It's
know I was
rare,
going to
it's
be in
not-
the movie.
There's very little of that in the talking head stuff, but.
I know, why am I the guy that's that person? I didn't want to be that guy.
Jason has a bunch of those because the movie's own EPKs in the movie.
Right.
So the EPK, it's all 5 of the actors that play the band. It's,
That's right.
like everyone's in there. You just have the best sound bite, so you end up in the trailer.
One of those bites struck me, because you guys are in the movie engaging with this idea of selling out, which is very core to the story of Pavement, and then I believe it was you had a bite about it, talking about how meaningful it was for a lot of '90s fans, obviously, and how it feels kind of antiquated now. I was wondering, as artists, it's such a fundamental part of the Pavement story, and it's kind of a core tension, but it's not a thing anymore. And I was wondering how y'all felt about that.
Well, I said it in the movie, but what do you think about selling out? Or, I guess it's just the idea that you gotta pay the bills if you're gonna be an artist. The traditional revenue streams aren't necessarily working anymore for artists, so if you gotta sell your song to a Nike commercial, it's like, I don't know, you probably just have to do it.
Yeah,
It's sad, but it's like, it's not
we
sad,
never-
it's just that
we
there's
never
no
got-
way to-
no one ever asked us, so we never got that.
By the way, I don't know how many of your reviews you read, thought like the Apple ad was real.
Many objects from the museum, even at the time of its own press,
Whatever it is.
they were just, clearly, you go there and they have all their old zines and all these posters and their VMA is there. And I'm like, man, journalism's really good. Like, this is really
It's
bad.
like a major newspaper was like, yeah, they did like an Apple ad, an Abercrombie ad, and it's in. But actually, it's kind of a testament to what a mindfuck the movie is, because
Yeah. You can, it's nothing in the like, yes, the Apple ad is almost on the edge, but like, it's not, everything there is credible.
Yeah.
The Absolute Vodka ad, it's like, there were 500 of those. Who's to say? Who's to say that they didn't do one? The Apple ad, and this was just Malcolm's, like, speed rounding figures from history he thought should like Pavement. And he was like, like Steve Jobs should, like, like the U2, your albums on your iPod, he's like, there should have been, like, Pavement were on every, like, whatever computer came out when we were a band, or, something like that. And I was like, well, he did the campaign of Muhammad Ali, Bob Dylan, Einstein. We'll just put you there at the end of the line. And that makes perfect sense. That takes Malcolm's Apple idea, Steve Jobs' idea. And then, I write the little text of, like, this was his favorite band, and Malcolm says, yeah, that's kind of the idea I wanted. I'll play along with this bit. And, yeah, nothing in there is, like, out of reach, but, nothing in there is like, there's nothing in there that like a casual person strolling through while a band is playing would be like, what the hell is this? And we fooled Thurston with the gold and platinum records to Malcolm's and Chris Lombardi's immense delight. He just came over and said, did you guys really outsell us by this much? And we had something really cool. It was the only thing that happened that day that I was just crushed. We had 8 cameras, and it was the only thing we missed that I'm like, I simply cannot believe that no one. This guy's walking around, he's 6.5 feet tall, no one's filming it.
Hey, I saw the fake Thurston walking down the street in New York.
Oh yeah,
Last
hard
time.
best, yeah.
Amazing.
Still don't know about fake Thurstons, we've got it other movies.
You call him 6.5 feet tall.
Well, how tall is he?
Probably like 6'5.5". But
6.5.
6.5.
Long ways up.
Yeah, great.
The end of the film gets sort of into Pavement and I guess you'd call it contemporary culture, bar movie, TikTok, things like that. Yeah, real mainstream stuff there. Jason, I assume lifelong fan. I should have asked that from the beginning.
Yes.
Ages.
Probably. There were different phases, but I think maybe I was the perfect age for like, the cut your hair video.
Yeah.
That's like prime time for me. That's like, you know what I mean? So that kind of blew my mind. Thought the guitar solo was so catchy, and wonderful. And so from then on, I would say, yeah, and then different phases, and different, and that's the best thing about it, is just all these different phases, and I'm the type of person who likes to watch the same movie a lot of times over many, I'm very loyal to the things that I love, because you do keep discovering new things, and it's just been such a wonderful band to love for that reason, because it just keeps, there's so much for you there.
Right. Yeah,
Well, I was probably 40 when I saw Rushmore, and that was
It's also like early people who's like technical enough of a musician to follow like Malcolm's tuning structures and like the general insanity around what he's put together for his sound, which is something that many people find inscrutable, myself included.
What? Sound?
Every you go to a show, switching to a different guitar, every song is tuned differently.
I am. I mean, I know. I wouldn't.
It's the kind of thing that you're talking about, and I'm like,
That's the-
yes.
I'm endlessly fascinated, but I don't want to bore. But I'm always like,
I can send you the chord.
I would love it.
Scott, are you a traditional tuning, or do you have a own tuning?
I only have drop D and that's it. So it was, but for some reason it worked with whatever he was doing. I was just trying to kind of fit into what his weird tunings were.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only like maybe 5 different tunings, but
6 strings, 5 tunes?
yeah.
But I think it's also just when Shady Lane came out, that was my kind of. That was like the video I loved, of course.
Yeah.
and I love everything about it, and I still will say that phrase to myself as I walk around, just like putting on my shoes and stuff. You know, everybody
Which
wants
phrase?
one.
Oh.
Shoe. I don't, you know, I think it's very true.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember when Right in the Corners was gonna come out,
Yeah.
and that was like, the talk around town was, this is the big one. This is the serious one, this is their Sergeant Pepper's or whatever. And it was very exciting when it came out, it delivered.
Yeah.
That's
Sounded great.
Yeah.
That's the sort of thing that the plot beats in the movie of creating a fictional narrative, and you know, you're referencing writing a song in the Doors movie in 1 minute. We've seen that scene in every terrible and even some good biopics, and so of course I wanted to do that scene, and then talking to everybody, and then I talked to everyone in the band, and then Malcolmus last. I'm like, so wowie zowie, Lollapalooza, kind of a catastrophe ultimately, according to literally every single person who was involved with your career. He's like, well, I don't know. But then we made Right in the Corners, and that's a good record, so I was probably doing okay. And I'm like, okay, so the end of that segment is just like, yeah, and then like one day he just sits down and writes stereo in 1 minute. And because his version of the story is like, and then we just put out that record and it's a really good one. So I don't know, it's not like I carried the baggage with me of that terrible summer. And I'm like, okay, so that's how the movie needs to go. Like, the band leaves the room, Joe just does that stupid scene we always see in movies. There's, of course, in the Bob Dylan movie, while you were standing and cheering as he writes, you know, one of his famous songs in one sitting. And, you know, begging my wife.
Joke's on me!
But, like, again, like, it's a silly joke in the movie because we know that scene, but it's based on this one offhand remark he made to me about, like, and then Right in the Corners, and that was good, so who cares?
The post-Lollapalooza incident, split screen is maybe one of my favorite uses of split screen I've ever seen. Because you have that contrast, right, with the dramatized moment, and then what it was like to really be there, which is just like a bunch of guys just kind of laughing about it.
Pretty much. I mean, it was, you know, it was kind of it was pretty. I'm sorry. It was pretty funny, really, if you look at it. You know, the whole day it was just that 30 seconds of freak out by me. You know, it's not my best moment, but you know, it sold records, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's, to me, like, that's such an important thing to isolate in, like, yes, that's a fun, to me in the movie, that's a fun 5 minutes of humor and nonsense. But then, like, broadly speaking, all these movies have the big concert sequence. You know, again, you're on your feet when the Newport scene is in this Bob Dylan movie. And like, Bohemian Rhapsody has Live Aid, and I watched on the back of someone else's seat on an airplane the Bob Marley movie. And there seemed to be some huge concert at the end of that as well that I couldn't follow because I wasn't listening. Or there was, so like, this is that scene. But then, like, by having this dressing down of Jason, which of course Lombardi's like, I mean, come on. Nothing like, I'm like, of course nothing like that ever happened. And then in the edit, the whole point of that footage, which was filmed by Deb Pastor, you know, who's a partner in the movie, is like, the whole point of putting that in there is like, when you're watching one of these movies, you can get swept up in it. The score can swell. But I just have to ask you, like, you don't actually think this is what happened, do you? You don't actually think that every sequential moment of these people's lives was perfectly structured for escalating drama. You do understand that, like, none of you watch these movies, you have to know these things didn't happen this way. And even if they did, not literally, like sort of figuratively, they happen this way. And it's just a fun way of kind of having our cake and eating it too, by writing a corny scene that I would never actually allow myself, but then filming it super boring, traditional, and then taking a joke out of it, making a joke of it.
Listening to you talk about your fandom of the band and yours as well, it's funny because the movies obviously starts with the grand proclamation and it explores the idea of this band being on the precipice of breaking through and achieving this level of success. But to the people who really loved it, it was the most important band of all time. And the reasons why it didn't cross over, sometimes a lot of times a band's own volition, I would say. But then in this sort of, it's had a second wind with the younger generation. I was wondering about this, as lifelong fans, you mentioned some of the references you throw in now, and then you directed, there's a surprise B-side hit out of nowhere, and there's a video, and that happened after you started making this movie, so that must have been really odd, and I wanted to put a pin in that, but what has it been like watching this band get a second win and then get this sort of treatment?
Well, can I say, I'm just not gonna answer that question directly, but it never occurred to me that I thought, and I still do, that Pavement is huge. Like,
That's what I mean.
I can't, my mind, when anyone says like, oh, it didn't do that, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, they are, you know, to me, it like, just, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it was like, it never occurred to me that you could view it any other way than as like, you know, a magic bullet, gold, beautiful thing that happened in time. You know, I don't, like, and I remember when we listened to this Bret Easton Ellis podcast, that was kind of like, he talks about it like really in depth with Stephen Malcolm, and in the beginning of that podcast, it's really interesting because he says all of this stuff. You know, sometimes podcasts, the person's taped the creator, their introduction at a separate time, like, we got a great person, but he's talking all about Stephen Malcolm. He's elusive, and he didn't do this, he didn't do that, he didn't do that. Stephen, what do you think of it? And you realize that he's saying all of this in front of him. And hearing that conversation was the first time that I had really even, I don't know, thought about that, to be honest with you. Like, it was a very important, I mean, to me at least.
And that's that clip from in the movie of like, when you're not successful in your time, you hope you're making music for the future. That's it. Like, that's what that's from.
Yeah.
And it's you know, you thought of it that way, or you did when you gave that interview. But the whole movie was birthed, you know, before I even knew it, by fighting in the edit room of Her Smell with Robert Greene. His favorite band is Pavement. I'm like, you know, talking about sales of the '90s. You know, Pavement, no gold record, no 500,000. He's like, what? That's not possible. That Crooked Rain must have sold at least $2 or $3 million. Why? Because every person I met for 15 years of my life owned, and I'm like, yeah, let's look that up. And I'm like, yeah, you knew a calculable percentage of that band's fans.
Right.
And you can see that the movie simply from day one was like, the movie lives in a space where none of that matters, where it's immaterial, where the success is what the 100,000 biggest fans make of it. Because that's what I want out of a movie like this. I want the movie that's not like, so literally, it's like, no, just make the movie that's like a celebration of what they are, could have been, ought to be, or literally are to you, to Robert, to
I mean, I'm really George about it. I mean, I've tried to find a Stratocaster with a rosewood, you know, with a fretboard that's black with a tortoiseshell with white pickups. It's very hard to find that guitar. I think that must be pieced together or something. But like, that's just. But I searched for a long time in the late '90s and early 2000s for said guitar, because I thought it's so cool. I've never seen one like that.
It's a magic guitar.
It's just great, and like that guitar is like a big, like that guitar. If I saw that like on a wall, I would be like, oh my god! Like I would just know that's the one. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, I actually met you. Remember at the Gorge Festival?
Oh yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. You're playing with Preston. I was just like, oh my god. And I think I might have even asked you like, what kind of guitars do you guys like? I really love this stuff beyond. It's crazy to me. And so yeah, there's a real fandom geekiness to it all. Like I think that it would be counterproductive, but I do think Fender should make that guitar
Yeah.
as the Stephen Malcolm Fender edition. They should make one of yours. Like you guys should have your own signature models of the guitars, because who else should? If you don't, then no one else should.
Right.
I should have done after. That's a good idea.
I would just say, I'm happy for you guys personally, that you're touring, but I think I want an album.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
Woo.
touring is
Yeah.
like, it makes me feel old, you know, it's like you guys need to go out and make some, add something to the culture, new records.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Produce it.
I would love.
I'm not gonna
I would love it.
produce
I would love it. It's just. I don't know. When we were doing the reunion tour, this last one, it was. We felt it was. I mean, we were great as a band, and we were. conversation probably should have come up, you know, but it wasn't gonna come up by any of us.
Right.
You know, like, so maybe next time you see us, you guys can.
That's the quote I like.
I will, I'd love to send, I'll send him a text right now if you want. There's no date in the record. Put the fucking hardcore tech to sleep for a few months. Sandbox, good on.
In the movie where Jason says to Jason, where he's like, it's weird to be better at something when it doesn't matter. Like you're just redoing something that's already happened. Like that's a very meaningful statement.
Yeah.
And we loved it. We weren't filming correctly because we didn't know we were going to be getting dialogue scenes, so that's why we had to subtitle it. So it was unthinkable to not put it in the movie. And it's such a funny line. It's like, we didn't used to be this good, but now
But we do have a soundtrack coming out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That has a lot of great.
Will there be
Performance.
unreleased things?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, there's like stuff on it, and dialogue clips of you and stuff. So you're like part of it.
We'll talk. I think I have to look at my long form memo.
Are we doing okay on time?
I think we're gonna end right now, because
Okay.
I know we're going quite long. And I'll just end with a question for you.
Can I have one more thing afterwards though? Can I get one of the football questions? I've been thinking about this whole time. At the end. Outside.
Or maybe somebody out here.
Yeah.
Maybe. But after you, sorry.
I'll ask one more and then, are we taking? I didn't ask.
You've got some time. Yeah, it's up to you.
I'm fine. It's really hot out.
Anywhere but outside would be great for me.
Okay, I'm gonna ask him one and then maybe. So this is not a earnest or traditionally earnest movie. Pavement is not an earnest band, but there are moments of their music where something like incisive or emotional just kind of cuts to you. You listen to a song, you're like, oh my god. And I feel like there were some moments like that in the film, particularly the ending, when you show your relationships, in particular between you guys and your kids, and the actors and all. And I was wondering why you just, if you intended that to be yours, or if I just misread it, but why you chose to end the movie the way you did.
Yeah, well, it's because, like I said, the whole time I was aspiring to this sort of mishmash of tones and sensibilities, which to me represent the best of the band, the best of the records, which, you know, commonly believed to be Wowee Zowee, and represents a real mishmash of sounds and styles. What's that?
Probably.
I feel like it was, when we were talking about this, like a disaster plus time equals like fan consensus for like Dark Horse favorite all the time. And but then ultimately, like I'm saying that there's all these things, but then I always knew like ultimately my take, if I'm gonna just kind of make this whole thing neutral and open-ended, ultimately you go to see the show and you end with any number of, you know, the most beautiful swooning song. And one of the shows with Finn or any of the various selections that you were often playing as the final song. And ultimately, you're just like, this is beautiful. This is incredible. And this is meaningful to me and to many, many, many other people over, you know, a long time now. And while we were doing the musical, I kept saying musical 65 minutes long. You know, yeah, maybe this might not end up in it. What about this moment? The moment doesn't matter. Like, it's about the sum total of the moments. However, the entire finale of the musical is the end of the movie, so it has to be perfect. And I learned that was a horrible thing to say to musical theater performers. But I just loved the finale because I knew that I wanted to sort of end with that feeling. The finale of a great musical, a great medley, there's nothing like it, ever, and for me. And I knew that that was the end, and I knew that that was the way to sort of put the movie to bed, by discussing and collapsing history, myth, reality, fact, culture. And to me, it's just like, I love the band, but I also like, they represent, as I keep saying, this era, which I love, which I grew up in, which I worship, which I miss. And the whole point of this kind of elegy at the end is like, that's all gone. Selling out, that's gone. Things being so simple, that's gone. Getting that CD and listening to it 1,000 times at home in the car, that's gone. Like, so much of that's just gone. And this band was so representative of that to me, and the movie to me is like a eulogy for all of that. But the band lives on, and that's really beautiful, and that's the hopeful spirit of the finale moments where you see the band now, middle-aged, there's joy, Malmus, you know, we share the band with our children, why don't we share with each other? Like, there's joy in the final moments, and that was ultimately how I felt like we should end. Because, you know, like, we were just sort of saddled with a shapeless final leg of the narrative, so you have to make something out of it. Well, because we're not gonna like do this sort of like supposed terror Twilight drama. There's no footage that supports like what you read online about producing that album. and it's just not worth doing like in the last 10 minutes of a movie.
Yeah.
Like it'd be great if Wowie's Out was the last album. That'd be really helpful for us. But that'd be a perfectly structured story, but we don't have that. And then while we're making the movie, you have Harness Your Hopes, you have Barbie,
Right.
you have your signal boosting of Steve King's painting. Like the beats of the story are as clumsy and shapeless as you would want from the Pavement story. It's not clean or correct. So you just kind of make of it what you can.
Like that.
What was the last song? Western Homes?
Yeah, which is Robert's tip of the hat to the way Wowie's Alley. That's what she says. Builds to a perfect ending, and then has one more song. And Robert's like, we just need to put Western Homes at the end because that's just so representative of what getting to the end of what. Or for me, it's.
I was surprised because I thought there's a few different Pavement songs now that I was like,
Yeah. Not a commonly. I don't think you played it once this whole tour. Robert's like, that's how you end Wowie's Alley, that's how you end the movie. And for me, again, I love the band, but I'm like, oh, so you mean like the way you end Use Your Illusion 2 with My World? And Robert's like, if it helps, if you insist.
I think we can take a few. Yeah. Okay. You've been in the back. Yeah.
I can't tell how sarcastic you are about the band.
Me?
Yeah, the musical, you're sarcastic. The movie, it's really mocking, and poor Joe.
Well, what do you mean?
Well,
He's so funny in it.
I don't think
Or
anyone's
Joe
ever.
who?
Yeah,
Joe who?
Yeah, there's no. I don't think anyone's ever given a better performance in a biopic than Joe has.
Hilarious.
Do you feel like Joe was not in on the joke?
well, I think that you created a ridiculous character for him, and so I wonder if you think that Pavement is like Spinal Tap, a band who if you're being sarcastic about Pavement with this movie.
Is this part of the movie? This is like the Coppola thing where he's got the actor in the theater doing a part. That's a brilliant idea.
I know, I was blown away by it.
Have the blowhard in the audience do an A with a stupid question.
They're exactly like Spinal Tap, because they're a great band that rules, that are real. And, I mean, I don't really get the question, nor do I care to unpack it, but there's nothing, I love this band. I saw this band in 2010 at Central Park, and I couldn't believe that this band that broke up was back for me to watch. And that was really cool for me. And getting to be in the room, a fly on the wall, out here in Burbank 3 years ago, watching them find that sound again, it was unbelievable. Getting to be at the Fonda show and meeting Tim and seeing the band play that, watching the vibe in the room when they came out on stage was transcendent. It was wonderful.
Raise your hand if you think that he likes Pavement.
Okay, so everyone but you raised their hand. But celebrating legacy is stupid. And Malcolm has said, please don't do that. And just, all he said is like, you just can't make a movie about how great we are. You just can't do it. I don't like those movies. That's a boring thing, and that's so not the story of us that is even worth telling. So I was like, yeah, so that's wonderful. And like, that's all the permission I need to only take this as seriously as you do. The guy's a hard worker, he's a perfectionist, but he ultimately is like, that's enough work. And I was like, that's what I'm gonna do on this. I worked on this movie for 4.5 years. I made an entire other movie within it. I made a musical, put this museum up.
You don't have to keep defending this movie.
This
is another question.
I'm building up to a big dump, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Is there an event that's happened in the band's lives or your guys' lives that you wanted to include that didn't really have time to put in?
No.
What about you, Scott? Is there something from your own life that you feel like
The movie has 3 hours of footage in it, so I feel like we got it all. I mean, like the Terror Twilight narrative of, Nigel Goodman, like that's not uncompelling. It just doesn't matter at the end of a career when the career isn't over because the career has continued. And I never wanted to put that in the movie because no one talked about it when I spoke to everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything, like some of the Lollapalooza stories, a Courtney Love story or two, it's like, those are juicy, but who cares?
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it.
Steve West's dog biting Courtney Love's daughter was a good one.
Oh.
And we put it it's in the dialogue, which is obviously no way to pull that off, but it's just, I like the story.
ball running over Gary. Did anyone ever tell you that story?
That's in the Gary doc.
Oh, that's in the Gary doc. Okay.
Yeah.
You told me that's great.
Yeah, I don't know, I feel like we got it all. Because, 4 years.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
How happy were you when you came up with the for your consideration watermark gag over the award?
Yeah, it's a dumb joke, but we had to do it. It gets big laughs, and I feel like I saw that in like some comedy in the '90s, and I don't remember it, but I just, it kind of goes.
I think it's Wayne's World.
I think it's Wayne's World also.
Wayne's
Wayne's World too?
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I would say that's also, yeah, so it's highly unoriginal and stuff
No,
like
or
everything else.
also in The Mask they do it.
He gets handed an award.
Yeah, right.
Take it from me.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is funny because I find those, again, that's what we were talking about. Like, I find those scenes preposterous in movies. And I just want people to sit there and be like, God, this scene is so dumb. Oh, okay, they know it's dumb.
Yeah.
You know what's a crazy scene in the movie? Can I just totally end this on
In The Mask.
In the movie Spaceballs, when they are trying to find them and they lose them in hyperspace, and the only way to find them is to take out a VHS copy of the movie Spaceballs, which is already out, put it in a player, and fast forward through the entire movie to that point in the movie. So much so that the screen they're watching has them on it, and then them on it, and then they're watching themselves, and then he looks back like this, and it's all happening like on tons of TV. That's a really wild scene. I just love it so much. That's a wild scene, right?
Yeah, it's great.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
These are the kinds of things Jason's always like, we should do a scene like that. It's like, how? And then we finally figured it out.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Or?
Preferably like insulting and productive of the work I did.
It's almost like we're at Sundance.
Alright, we'll take a couple more.
Yeah.
Middle? Yeah.
Very good movie.
So now we're talking.
How the kind of like multiple narratives, like stories within stories. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. But do you think that like this could only happen in a Pavement biopic, or there could be other bands who could do this?
I think that Malcolm has told me avoid the cookie cutter. And then we made a really weird shaped cookie cutter to make this story that to me is about a band that is so unique, nothing else would work. I would watch this exact format of movie for anybody. It would make no sense for anybody else, is my answer. The only people this would make sense for are the artists I was inspired by that have received so much media, so much legacy, so much narrative, that I would just like to see 6 David Bowie movies edited into one. I would love to see the Pennebaker Spiders from Mars cut together with Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, cut together with, whatever, cut together. I would love to see a 2-hour art project of something like that. But the point is that will only make sense for artists at that level. And my whole thing is like, this is that level. This work is at that level. But no one's gonna do this because there aren't already 5 existing movies. So I have to make those 5 documentaries to smash them together. But I would watch it for anybody. This is why I love the Todd Haynes Dylan movie, because it approaches that level of trickery. And I would watch a movie that
I love that too.
well now we finally have found that calendar. I would watch a movie that takes him as a subject. And I guess the Rolling Thunder review movie recently is a version of that.
I like that.
I would watch something that does that because to me this is what I love of multifaceted depictions of complex 3-dimensional characters, creative characters who we love. So yeah, I would watch this exact thing, but I'd be like, why am I watching a movie with like,
3 Doors Down, the band.
3 Doors Down, the musical and 3 Doors Down, the biopic. That would really hang Joe Curie out to dry if he was in the 3 Doors Down.
Alright, we'll do one more. I think that's right there. Sure.
So I kind of feel like there's like 2 pavements. There's like the studio work, which to me feels like very sincere and open, and then there's kind of like the public persona and like the interviews and stuff like that, which just to me my read is like maybe almost more like a character. And I'm curious, do you reconcile those 2 things, or is that part of Pavement's identity? I guess.
Let's go to you for that. Subject matter expert.
I think the interviews just came off that way because we were probably nervous or tired, and we did so many shows. We travel around in a little van most of the time and on little sleep, and maybe it was just kind of us being bored and trying to kind of entertain each other. I mean, you do a lot of interviews, and mostly just because of, you know, being tired probably.
For 10 straight years.
I mean, luckily Steve was pretty on it, you know, with his quotes and, you know, I never really I never really read the interviews or watched the shows, except for, I think I watched the 120 Minutes one, and Louis Largent getting kind of talked down a little bit, but, I didn't really know about any of the stuff he was saying until Alex's movie, and so yeah, it just kind of made me see Steve in another light, you know.
That's cool.
You know, and made a lot of things more you know, make sense.
Alright. Really quick, off the rip, everybody's favorite song. Don't have to explain why. Go.
Holy shit.
Oh
my god.
It's not ending. We go back to you, Tim.
Oh my god.
The drumstick, what's that one? What's it called?
Silent.
Silent.
It's a hit.
Oh.
Okay. Alice.
I was very sad that my ambition to elevate Give It a Day in this film to a something that people would be like, I'm not super familiar with that one, didn't really go anywhere. I love that song. I got to see it a few times during the filming, and I really love it.
I'm a softie for a carrot stick.
Yes,
too.
carrot.
Carrot roast.
Jason, back to you.
I'm a softie for that one too. That song is really amazing. The word apricot, it's never been better. I would, you know, honestly, I guess at the end of the day, I would have to say, Summer Babe. I love, and I do love Shady Lane. It affects me deeply every time I hear it. There's just something wild about it that it just like, it reminds me of everything.
Yeah.
And it's also just the way the notes are all mingling together.
Yeah.
It's just nuts. Like it messes me up.
What song goes like dun 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 dun?
Thank you, everybody.
My favorite is Harness Your Hopes.
Oh yeah, woo! Date with IKEA. Oh. Oh.
All right, folks, thank you so much for coming. Please tell your friends we're playing